everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name is Ben Jackson, and I'll be your host as always. And once again, I'm joined by Scott. Scott, how are you doing this evening?
I'm great, Ben. How are you? Hope you're good.
Yeah, all good, thanks. This is another one of our special Belgian Football Podcast episodes. This one will be looking ahead to the upcoming Belgian Cup final between Gent and Anderlecht. Game takes place on Monday, 18th of April, around about 3 p.m. Brussels time. So in order to do a proper deep dive, and rather than just me and Scott talking about these two teams, we thought we'd get people that actually know what they're talking about a little bit more than us. So we're absolutely delighted to be joined by Max Zalcman from the Anderlecht fan podcast, Mauvecast, and Ghent correspondent Stefan Smet from the Flemish daily newspaper Het Nieuwsblad. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It's a great opportunity to talk about the best club in Belgium and the best club in Flanders. So.
This is a good start. This is a good start. That's what we want. Get it going early. I mean, you're both these two teams have been going at each other in the league, but let's just quickly look over their kind of route to the final. We'll start with Ghent. Scott very kindly pulled out some stats for me, so I hope these are all correct, but you can correct us if we're wrong, but I'm pretty sure they're fine. So this will be Ghent's sixth cup final. They previously have a record of 2 losses, 3 wins. Last win coming in 2010 against Cercle Bruges. The route for the 2022, they beat Luc Niel's amateur side 4-0 at home. Beat Lommel away 2-0. Standard Liège at home 3-1. And then they beat Club Bruges 3-1 on aggregate in a really hotly contested semi-final. On the other side, for Anderlecht, should be their 14th cup final. They've won 9 of those, last time being against Ghent in 2008. They absolutely battered La Louvre 7-1 away, beat Solang 4-3 on penalties, beat Kortrijk 3-0, and then beat second year in a row cup semi-finalist Eupen 5-3 on aggregate. So guys, I'll start with you, Stefan, actually. Yeah, so how has the cup campaign kind of gone for Ghent this season? Has it been quite comfortable until the Bruges game, or do they have a couple of scares going into it?
Well, I must say the game in Lommel, it was such a typical cup tie away game and a second tier team that was not going really smoothly, but okay, at the end they qualified, so no harm done. Then, of course, the semi-finals against Bruges, always very tense games, big rivalry between those two teams. So yeah, that was a big opportunity for Ghent to step up, and they really did. So now they are in the final. They have some unfinished business with Anderlecht, of course, after last weekend, and of course there's also that cup final of 2008. Everybody who witnessed that game still remembers that was quite a heroic fight, a very, very tense game, very tight as well. So yeah, everybody in Ghent is really looking forward to that sixth cup final in the club history, and believe me, they will be ready for that game.
No, definitely. We hope it's another absolute classic. That would be fantastic. I guess same question for you, Max. With Anderlecht's kind of run, I guess having Eupen in the semi-finals wasn't as big a challenge as Club Brugge, but we've seen that Eupen are quite a good cup side. Was there just a little bit more pressure on them, I guess, with this cup run with the teams they faced?
Definitely facing Eupen in semi-final, we didn't have any room for mistake. I think that the most difficult game was the game at Serein. Of course, it ended up to the penalty shootout. And back at the time, Anderlecht was in a great form. And I think actually the form just turned around at that time, at that game, because they were losing after, I think, 15 minutes. It was already 2-0 for Serein, and they just turned it around and won after penalties. And then they started to get a great run of victories in the championship as well. So I think that was maybe one of the games that changed Anderlecht's season. But yeah, of course, the rest of the tournament wasn't that hard for Anderlecht. Like the other fixtures weren't difficult. And yeah, the game versus Eupen was kind of, yeah, it was easier obviously for us, but now we are really looking forward for that great final against Gent. Yeah, I remember I was at the stadium for the first final in 2008, and it was an amazing moment. Gent really played well. I remember there was I think it was a post for Ghent when it was 2-1 for Ghent. So they almost made it to...
Yeah, it was a kick of Khalid Fadiga.
Fadiga back at the time.
Khalid Fadiga, he hit the post, and I spoke to him only a couple of weeks ago, and he told me that he's still looking back at that game as one of his biggest disappointments of his career. So can imagine somebody like Fadiga, who played World Cups, who joined Inter Milan, looking back at that game and still, he's still really, really, really big disappointment about that.
Yeah, that strike on the post was really amazing. And then obviously back at the time we had the likes of the big artists such as Ahmed Hassan and Bark Boussoufa, and they just turned the game around. And good souvenir. Our last souvenir of a cup final is obviously less great, with Leo Rafaelov, our current player, smashing that volley against Club Brugge. So that was less of a good souvenir, but looking forward to Monday.
Yeah, the last cup final of Ghent wasn't that much of a joy either. 2019 against KV Mechelen, that was perhaps one of the biggest disappointments in the history of the club. I mean, everybody really counted on a next cup win, and then been beaten by a second division team. Okay, they got promoted, that's true, but that was start of a very, very difficult time for Torup and for the club as on a whole. Yeah.
You both kind of alluded to it there, and to go into my next question in kind of reminiscing about that 2008 Cup final with Vadica, thinking that that's one of his biggest disappointments. So I guess, Stefan, go back to you with how important is the Cup to Ghent? Obviously, coming into this season, they had obviously the league to focus on, the Conference League as well, and the Cup. Like, where does that rank in terms of priority, or is it one of those things where as the season goes on, it becomes more important?
Yeah, of course, you can't start a season saying that you want to play the cup final. I mean, you can always think about that, but for sure, the big ambition came by reaching the semi-final. I mean, that's mostly the time teams and coaches are starting to, really planning on perhaps getting in that cup final. But of course, when you draw when you get your draw and it's a double tie against Bruges, it's not that easy. Of course, it's not open, but okay. I mean, they managed to get in that cup final, and now everybody in Ghent is realizing also that okay, it's a big opportunity for them to get a trophy, and they're out of the competition for the title. I mean, until Sunday, there was a small chance that's blown away. So they have playoff 2 left. So you have to be really a big optimistic in life to enjoy playoff 2. So if you have the opportunity to win a cup, so I think everybody in Ghent, in the Gelamco Arena, is really preparing themselves to get a shot on that cup final.
Yeah, definitely. I guess, like you've mentioned there, like the playoff disappointment will definitely now feed into the cup final that a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Max, I guess kind of a similar question, but I guess lots of listeners will be interested in like Vincent Kompany. Obviously, like English listeners will know him really well. How important is the cup, do you think, for him and his managerial kind of career at Anderlecht so far, to be like, look, I've delivered a trophy for the first time in such a long time?
Yeah, that's definitely important for Vinny to have his first trophy as a head coach of Anderlecht. But I think all in all, Anderlecht badly needs a trophy right now. We've been waiting since 2017, so 5 years without a trophy. It's obviously a long period for Anderlecht, for such an historical club. So I think everyone badly needs a trophy. I remember, so in our podcast a few weeks ago, I was asked the question whether I would prefer to be in the cup final, to win the cup, but be in the playoff 2, and I answered that because I won a trophy. But of course, I'm obviously very happy to be in playoff 1, but I'd rather have a trophy right now than being in a symbolic playoff 1.
Yeah, no, as a fan of a smaller club like Reading, I can get behind being relegated and winning a trophy. Is like, you take that any day of the week, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I could argue with that. Let's kind of move on to injury concerns. Let's kind of get these out of the way a little bit. Stefan, if you could just give us like kind of any kind of like what you've heard from the camp in terms of who's injured. I saw that I think after the second goal, it looked like T. Sudali had a bit of an injury, but then he got up and scored the third goal on Saturday. So presume he's going to be okay, because that's the one everyone's probably looking at and thinking, if he's okay, it changes everything for Ghent. And if he's not there, becomes more of an issue.
I think everybody in Ghent who's rooting for Ghent is now praying that there's nothing happening with Tarek Tissoudali in the next couple of days. I think that counts as well for Vadis Ojija. He was left out of the squad for the game against Leuven, but I really have the impression that everybody thinks that he will be okay for the final. And that's about it. I mean, the last couple of months, they had quite some problems with injuries, with people who were doubtful and stuff like that. There is still a little question mark for the presence of Josef Okumu. He was also left out of the squad last weekend, but that was not a big problem. So normally, if everything goes according to plan, then I think that Ghent will be really on, full speed ahead.
Yeah, I think even kind of neutrals are praying that Tarek Tissoudali is fit, because it just makes the cup final a little bit more exciting seeing him there, given the form he's in. Max, I guess the same sort of question. We saw on the weekend, obviously, Sergio Gomez come off injured. Yariscaran obviously didn't play. What about anyone? Is there anyone else that might be injured, or is there anything about those guys? Maybe they're going to be back. I saw Company wasn't too concerned about Gomez after the game.
Yeah, so there's a third actually now important player that is missing right now is Majid Ashimeru. We hope he's coming back for the cup tie. He has missed the last two games, so we'll see with that. But I don't really rely on Vincent Company to communicate any kind of actual information about it. So I'm hopeful, but I'm still a bit worried about Sergio Gomez when we were seeing after the game at Kortrijk. He didn't seem really in a great shape, so we'll see. But of course we have people behind them. So I think Anwar El Telhaj did a good game in Kortrijk, so he's ready to replace Yariscaran. I think he's not as good as him, but he's still ready. And then behind Sergio Gomez, we have Mikhail Lichenko that has done quite a few good games recently. So I think he would be able to replace him. And then, longer term injuries, we have the likes of Zeno de Bast and Hannes Delcroix. But that's a longer thing. So we don't count on them for the cup tie. But without Sergio Gomez, Voscaran and Ashimeru, that will be three key players that will be definitely missed if they come to be injured for the cup tie. But let's hope that their replacements would be in a good form.
Assuming everyone is fully fit or mostly fully fit, Max, who would be who's your preferred starting 11 for this game? Because the Anderlecht side this season has generally, for the most part, been really very settled, bar, just a couple of changes, and usually they're tactical, So you might see, for example, Ashimiro starting ahead of Olsen usually, and that's been in games where we know Anderlecht are going to get a bit more space that they can exploit, for example. So who assuming everyone is fit, who would be your starting 11 ideally?
So I think this I would use the same starting 11 as Vinny did in the last week. So without the injured, I would put definitely Sergio Gomez and Voscaran in, and then I'd go Ashimeru over Olsen for the reason that I think he has the ability to do the counter pressing that Vinny wants better than Olsen. However, Olsen in the last two competition games did actually better than in his first month. But I'd go Ashimeru over Olsen, and that's it. And the rest of the team, I think, is pretty settled, and we won't have any surprises.
Yeah, and I can't imagine Company mixing it up too much in terms of that. He is quite happy with that, and It's interesting because like Olsen and Cullen was like so strong at the beginning, and then when Olsen got injured, Ashimura came in and just suddenly like just took the spot away from Olsen completely with the way he played.
Yeah, exactly, and especially because he wasn't when he was coming in the first month, he wasn't this season. He wasn't playing really well, so we didn't expect Ashimeru to glow up that well, and we're very happy with what he has done since Olsen has been injured.
Yeah, no, 100%. So fingers crossed he'll be back. But yeah, like you said, let's not take anything company says on medical grounds.
Exactly.
I guess, Scott, that's a great question. Stefan, I'll ask the same one. If everyone's fit at Ghent, like, who do you think would be the best starting 11?
Well, I think you can pick the starting 11 almost by heart. I mean, Henver Haasbroek, he has a big heart for the 11 players who played the most this season. I mean, you have Davy Roef in the goal since Sinan Bolat decided to have a little trouble for a short holiday in Turkey, and and then perhaps there are some you can pick Andreas Hanke Olsen or Josef Ekumu in the back three, but for sure Michael Ennegadeu and Jordan Torunariga, they will play for sure. They are really, really that strong in the last couple of weeks. I mean, Torunariga, he came from Germany, from Hertha. He is really an exciting player to watch. He's still very young, but has a lot of experience in the Bundesliga, and that shows off. I mean, he is so strong and so skillful as well. He dares to go on an adventure even in the opposing 16. So he's really a joy to watch. And then on the midfield you've got Julien Dessart, the most popular player for Inver Hazenbroek apparently. Then you've got Sven Kums, also a big game for him. I mean, if you play against your ex-team, like for Davy Roef as well, that's always something special, and that counts as well for Ojija. So there are some players in Ghent who are really thrilled to play against Anderlecht on this cup final. So watch out. And then on the wings you've got Matti Samoise, for sure. A very young guy, but really for me the big surprise in Ghent for this season. Really, really big revelation. And then on the left, Alessio Castromontes, somebody who can play only not in the goal, but on the other hand, why not? He didn't try it so far, but you can give him any other assignment, he will do it. It's incredible. And then you've got Vadis, like I said, he will, if he's fit, then no doubt about that. He will play for sure. And then up front, Laurent de Poitre, the one of the most powerful strikers in Belgium, I think. And then Tarek Tissoudali, the wizard. I mean, it's a really nice squad, and especially it's a squad that can really compete with Anderlecht on a way Anderlecht doesn't like. I mean, Ghent as well, they try to play high pressure, very dynamic kind of football, and that can be really interesting to see those two coaches try to neutralize the opponent, and I'm very interested who will succeed most.
Yes, and Alessio Castromontes is also a former Anderlecht player. He never played for the senior
Yeah,
team.
but he
Yeah,
only played
exactly.
in the youth, so that's but it's true. But it's really interesting to watch, and if we can go back to the game of 2008, don't forget 2 goals of Anderlecht were scored by ex-Ghent players. So that's something that is always remembered in Ghent as. It's a pity we didn't sell them to a foreign club.
Yeah, I can imagine. We spoke a little bit. Let's kind of get into these like key players. You mentioned Torunariga. I think you're right. I'm really impressed with him coming over, and I'm really excited to see him against Xerxes. Like 2 big, strong guys going at it.
Yeah.
Max, you kind of mentioned one guy who has a bit of a history in the cup of scoring goals, and Leo Rafael. Would, if he does get, like, let's say he pops up with the winner, would everyone forget that he scored against you guys in the other finals? Would it be like, oh yeah, we're fine now, like you want to done it for us?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 100%. I think it's already forgotten. I think he has been a key player this season, bringing a lot of experience, a lot of leadership in the team, and a lot of technicality. I mean, technically, he's one of the most gifted players we have in the squad. So he has been really important. He has, of course, had minor games, but he's really important, and he has adapted to Anderlecht, so he knows that he has to perform on Monday. So we expect him to score the same volley, the same.
Yeah, he's really been producing the goods, actually, isn't he? Because I think he's on 12 goals now. You know, that's aside obviously from his assists. So he's contributing in all of the right ways. He had a slightly slow start when he arrived, didn't he? And I think it seemed like that from the outside, but you know, looking at it now, I think you know the quality. That has always been there, I think, is now that he's kind of settled, is able to show itself. And I do wonder whether that slightly slow start was a deliberately protecting him a little bit, just because of the heat around the circumstances of that move as well. But yeah, I think he's become every bit as important, I think, as he was identified for, you know, originally in the reasons for signing him. Definitely.
Yes, definitely, and I think Lior knows his body very well now, and he had some injuries in his previous season, and this season he has been fit for the entirety of the season. So I think he's pretty good as finding his rhythm in order to not be injured. But definitely, Anderlecht performances rely mostly on the performances of Zirkzee and Refailov. If both perform well, then Anderlecht will certainly be very hard to beat for any team in Belgium. But then if both of them perform a bit less well, then Anderlecht has a lot of difficulties. So I think those are the two key players for Anderlecht to perform well.
Frankly, I really have the impression you can't underestimate the part of Kouame. He's a kind of striker that's. I really understand it's not the kind of striker an Anderlecht fan is dreaming about, but he's so important in the way Anderlecht is playing this season. He takes up the dirty work for Zirkzee and Refailov, and it's thanks to that guy that those two, great, talented, gifted players can deliver. Thanks to Kouame, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Kouame has a work rate, an
Yeah,
incredible
for
work
sure.
rate. So, like in the counter pressing, especially, he's working a lot. And actually, we've had this discussion in our podcast a few weeks ago, and we were asking ourselves who was our key player, our best player of the season. And for me, it's impossible to answer that because each player has an
What?
important role. Like nobody talks about Josh Cullen,
He's a
but
key
Josh
player.
Cullen is,
Yeah.
for me, might be the most important player in Anderlecht's build-up, both defensively and offensively.
Yeah.
So, and Verskaren is important, and Murillo is important, and Sergio Gomez is important. I mean, everyone has his importance, and I think that's the biggest strength of Vincent Kompany is found a way to make everyone important in his team.
It's interesting that you mentioned Josh Cullen there, Max. I was having a conversation with the Irish Football Fans TV recently when they were playing the Red Devils, and I got asked quite a lot about Josh because obviously you know they've not been able to see too many Anderlecht games, and you know we've seen, you know, we've been watching them every week here at the BFP. And the thing about Josh is he's a very unshowy player, but he's very, very considered. So, for example, for somebody who's quite small and diminutive in his stature, he's extremely good aerially, and he's not rash in the tackle either. So, his judgment and all sorts of kind of key areas is just so good. And I think, you know, often football fans, you know, kind of tend to write off players who don't overly entertain them or aren't necessarily flashy. And the fact that, you know, he's featured in every game, I think he's only missed something like 14 minutes, and that was through
Yeah.
coming off as a substitute all season, you know, kind of tells you how important he is to Anderlecht and how highly valued he is, and that he's almost certainly, well, probably the second name in the team sheet after Hendrik van Krombrug these days.
Yeah, definitely, and he's really highly rated among the Anderlecht supporters. I think it's more the rest of the league that doesn't rate him as high as we do. But yeah, you can see that he has been formed by the West Ham Academy. He has this intelligence of football that you could see in the likes of Frank Lampard and other West Ham Academy
He
players.
looks like someone that's come out of the West Ham Academy.
But frankly,
Oh.
I really think that the biggest step forward that Anderlecht managed to do this season is building a team. I mean, the last couple of years, Anderlecht, okay, they were struggling with external and financial trouble, but this season they managed to get a squad that was, yeah, really interesting. But the company managed to build a team that is really with a lot of composure, and that way he stick really to the plan. And if you look how he managed to get his team now in playoff one, they are playing the cup final. There's some kind of a balance in the team, and I think that's the biggest step forward they managed to perform this season, is getting that balance, getting that really a team performance week after week, and that's something really a credit to Vincent Company.
Yeah, and I think in 2022 there are really three teams that are coming up is FC Bruges, Gent, and Anderlecht. They are the three
Yeah, that's
best
true.
performing team in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah, we literally just said that on our podcast as well. Perfect timing. Last question, Anderlecht, and we'll jump back to Gen. It's kind of one you've kind of mentioned there. We talk about like Josh Cullen not being subbed. One of the subs that I've noticed company does a lot is Xerxes for Raman. If the game's close, do you think he makes that sub, and do you think the fans will be okay with it? Like, I know that Xerxes, like, you know, he's got the quality and stuff, but Raman's that guy that just, you know, he's going to score like a random goal off his knee or something to win the game. I just have that feeling that he's that sort of player. So, yeah, do you think he does that? Do you think he's got the balls to do it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you ask the question to a supporter, so I'm biased, but I would love to see Zirkzee any minutes on the field because he's an artist and we love artists in Anderlecht. But obviously, when it comes to win a game, Raman could be very important. And I've asked myself this question: why is company always subbing Zirkzee off and not Kouame? And I mean, he could try this for once, maybe in this cup final, try to put Raman instead of in place of Kouame, and then
No,
play Raman and Zirkzee up top. We'll see, but I I know he won't. I know everybody knows he won't, but yeah, I hope Zirkzee will play at least 75 minutes on Monday. We'll see. It depends, of course, on the results, but yeah, Raman has showed. I mean, he's the best sub in the league. He has, I think, 7 goals and 4 assists coming off the bench, and only 2 goals and 2 assists when he started the game. So he is really a key player coming off the bench. But I'm a Zirkzee lover, so I will stick to Zirkzee any day of the week.
I'm sure if he struggled to find an Anderlecht fan who prefers Raman over Xerxes. Like, I can't imagine many of them exist in many parts of the world. But I'm a Benito Raman fan from the Fortuna Düsseldorf days, so maybe that's my bias. Stefan, kind of a similar question. We mentioned like Raman off the bench is obviously Anderlecht's kind of the play if they need the goal. Like, where do Gent go with that? Because obviously we know that strikers has been something that we've spoken a lot about of wanting in, and they signed certain strikers that people were like, I don't know why he's turned up. My theory is he's going to score the winner in the cup final potentially. I have a feeling that that'll be his moment. But where do you think Heisenberg goes in terms of changing the game off the bench?
I won't put my money on it, but yeah, for sure. Kent has a good lineup, but they haven't got the quality of a Benito Raman on the bench to get in the game and try to make that winning goal. For sure, there are some people who has some scoring ability, like he proved last weekend, Andrew Julseger. He's somebody who he can make an action, he can dribble, he can give an assist, and he can mark himself. But you haven't got a third striker of the same level of De Poitre or Tissoudali. That's just simple mathematics. I mean, look at the statistics, and you see that there's a like a Grand Canyon beside of the statistics of those two and the rest of the teams. So of course, I can imagine that there are some people who are rooting for Darko Limaj. It's a hell of a guy, really nice guy. But I don't think that Gent is playing the type of football that he's used to, or that he is capable of performing. I mean, you can't deny the fact that he was playing in Latvia for only 8 months ago. So it's a big step for him to come to Belgium and play in a team of Hein van Hazenbroek, who is really tactical, really strong, and high demanding. So perhaps next season, if he can tag along, and if perhaps Gent is trying to play a little differently, then it can work out. But I really think that they better hope that Tarek Tissoudali and Laurent Depoitre get the job done before they got substituted.
And that kind of leads on to my second question in terms of like, how do you think then Heisenberg approaches the game in terms of, obviously he doesn't want to be behind and chasing the game. So do you think he goes out a little bit defensively, or kind of like pushes to get the early goal and then sit back?
Well, last couple of months, every time Gent had to try to get a goal up front, then every time they got behind, it went wrong, almost every time. So they really have to try to get in front to score that goal, perhaps an early one, but especially don't concede. I think that will be very crucial. But I know Hein van Hazenbroek quite a long time now. I know he's not the trainer, he's not the coach that will say before the cup final, we will defend. No, hell no. He will always try to be the dominant side. He always try to be smart out company. It will be really interesting to look at those two as well. I mean, what are they trying as a special treat for that game? I can't imagine that Hein van Hazenbroek hasn't got something up on his sleeve and is trying to surprise company. But of course, company for sure will try the same thing with Van Hazenbroek, of course. But yeah, I really don't think that Van Hazenbroek will decide to really play defensive. But of course, he can make minor adjustments and look a little bit. Let's say if Gomez is playing on Monday, for sure Van Hazenbroek will get a little tactical adjustment to just take care of Gomez, but he won't decide to put away all of the tactics of the last couple of years. No, he will always start with the same philosophy that he always do. So yeah.
Yeah, Hein is a tactical mastermind. I was quite surprised to see how free Sergio Gomez was in that Gent Anderlecht game.
Mhm.
He was the one creating the most chances for
Mhm.
Anderlecht, and yeah, I don't know why Hein didn't take care of it. That was a big surprise for me. But yeah, I'm sure he'll be ready to fight Anderlecht as hell, and he'd be very happy to beat company
Oh
tactically,
yeah,
I'm
for
sure.
sure. But I really think that Hen will he will take a lot of interesting details from that last game. I mean, Anderlecht was very strong that day, and they really played excellent for, let's say, more than 70 minutes. So if you want to analyze the power and the assets of Anderlecht, you better watch that game. So he will for sure try to learn and try to find solutions for the trouble they got that night.
No, definitely. I think we've kind of highlighted that Sergio Gomez role as being like quite an
Yeah,
important
for
one.
sure.
It was interesting to see on the weekend. Massaudou for Kortrijk was really causing him some problems in that sense. So I wonder if like Samwaz can try and play a similar role, or maybe like Tariq will move out there. So it's going to be interesting. Scott, have you got any more questions before we go for a score prediction from our two guests?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this chat. Actually, it's been great to get an insight from the guys, and I was already quite excited about this game beforehand, because going into this, final. Both sides are in absolutely fantastic form, actually, which bodes well, he says, with his fingers crossed. But so well that the form's almost identical. I mean, when I was looking at this more closely for our regular episode this week, take the last 9 games, for example. Ghent have obviously won 8 and drawn 1, scoring 20 and conceding 4, whereas Anderlecht have won 7, drawn 1 and lost 1, scoring 20 and conceding 5. So there's very, very little separating the form. It's that close. And in fact, the only thing that it really comes down to over those 9 games is some individual performances by players. We know how important Tarek Tissadali's been. I mean, over those 9 games for Ghent, Tarek Tissadali's got 19 goals and 29 so far, but he's responsible for 9 of those 20 goals in the last 9 games, which is just under half of them, which is incredible. Whereas Anderlecht obviously have the slight advantage, on paper anyway, of the goals contribution has been spread around more players as well. So that obviously isn't necessarily going to translate into how it affects this game if the strongest sides are out, but the strength of both sides' form, bodes for a fantastic game, and dare I say it, hopefully we might even get a classic.
Yeah, I hope so. But whenever expectations are high in Belgium, you have a boring game, and everyone gets off with 2 last hours. But no, let's hope for a lot of great performances. I mean, last game in Ghent was. So I think Ghent was a bit disappointing, but it was a beautiful game still, and it played on details, and the detail was a beautiful pass by Sven Kums and a beautiful finish by Tissoudali, and maybe we'll have the same at the Heysel next Monday. I hope for a better end on my side, but yeah, I'm really looking forward for that final.
Yeah, but I think in Ghent, everybody is really aware of the fact that they have to step up their game comparing to that last encounter. I mean, that was one of their less performances of the last months. I mean, everybody noticed as well that Anderlecht was a better team for quite a big part of the game. So, like I said earlier, I'm really convinced that Van Hazenbroek will have to change something to be capable of counter the system that the company is playing with this team this season. So, but of course, you got the magic of Tissoudali. That's something you can't define without starting to use some really big words. But it's special. You can't predict anything he would do. And like you said earlier, Max, I really have sometimes have the feeling that I'm looking at a younger version of Mbarka Boussoufa. And the way he can decide a game with only one touch, that's only something a really big one can, and like Boussoufa did in the time in the Anderlecht and for Ghent, something like that is happening now with Tissoudali, and it's really a joy to watch.
Stefan, is that a hint to tell me that he's going to sign to Anderlecht? I would be happy.
You can't take your dreams for a reality, Max, but I really don't think that Tissoudali will go to another Belgian team after the season. If he's leaving Ghent, I think it will be for a really big competition. There's already some big clubs who are looking on his profile, like Valencia, apparently. So if we are lucky to watch Tissoudali in the Super Pro League next season, it will be in Ghent, I think. But never say never, of course.
Yeah, no, I know that financially it certainly has become impossible for Anderlecht to get Tissoudali in. Yeah, and also I think for the game for the next game on Monday, I think Anderlecht will have a much tougher time because I'm pretty sure Hein van Hazenbroek will use the sides more, like the likes of Alessio Castro Montes and Matisse Samoise. because I think he has underused them in the last encounter. So I'm pretty sure we'll have a tough time with
Yeah,
those two
because the strength
on
of
Monday.
Ghent is, of course, in this system, the importance of the wings is so high. You can't underestimate that. But of course, you can't deny that Anderlecht with Gomez is one of the best wing players in Belgium as well. So that will be a huge battle for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think there's just so many big battles all over the pitch, like that midfield area of Kums, Desart, Cullen, and whoever we get, Ashimu, Olsen, and in the wide areas and the strikers and the centre backs. It's going to be great. We're really looking forward to it. Let's do obviously score predictions. You're allowed to be biased, like that's why you guys are on here. That's why we brought you on. Stefan, I'll go with you first. What's your score prediction? And maybe one of the goal scorers as well.
Also that one. Well, let's say it will be a really tight game, but at the end, Kent will win 2-1, and of course, the winning goal will be by Tarek Tissoudali.
Max, same question.
So I would go for, I'm an optimistic, so I would go for a spectacular game ending 3-2 for Anderlecht after extra time. Leo Rafaelov scoring the last minute goal from outside the box. That's it.
Position as well, the goal. Love it. Scott, as a neutral, I'll go for you as well.
I have a feeling that Anderlecht are going to win this just because they're in such a good place at the moment. There's something about their body language this week, which I mentioned in this week's regular episode, that I just thought was really quite telling. And I don't know how much of a factor the disappointment of missing out on playoff one, although they were very realistic about it. And the kind of slightly sluggish start to the season that Ghent had, and dropping some points that they probably shouldn't have been behind that. I don't know how much of a factor that's going to be yet, kind of going into this. Also, as well, Stefan was talking about Hein van Heizenbroek's kind of tactical approach. Ghent have been, particularly in the early part of the season, slightly slow starting in games, I think, and this is definitely something they can't do here. And I think Stefan's right. I think if Ghent are going to win, I think they probably have to score first, but I think Anderlecht might win this. And because I'm hoping for a classic, as I was saying earlier, I'm going to say 4-3 to the Mauves.
Wow.
I'm an optimist.
Love that. I mean, I'll take that. I'll take that as a game, a 4-3 to either side as a neutral. I'm going 2-1. And I've already said I think Darko Lamaic is going to score the winning goal. I just have this. There's just this something in the back of my mind that says he's going to be the one that just pops up with like a header or a knee or something. But we'll see. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. We've really enjoyed it. We're sure listeners are really going to enjoy it as well. Good luck to both of you for the final. Hopefully you'll both be able to enjoy it. I know one of you will be disappointed at the end, but as long as it's entertaining for me and Scott, we'll be happy. But yeah, is there anything before we go that you guys want to say to like listeners in terms of where they can find stuff that you write or podcasts or anything like that? Feel free to just quickly jump in and share it now.
I'll start then. Well, our podcast is in French, so I don't know how many French-speaking people you have among your listeners, but you can find us at Mauvecast. So that's a recently merged podcast and live reaction to what happens in Anderlecht, and we are the major unofficial media platform for Anderlecht. So it's Mauvecast.
I know I'm always rooting for Shotcast. That's the official podcast of het Nieuwsblad. And of course, you can always read everything about Ghent in het Nieuwsblad and our regional edition, De Gentenaar.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. And thanks, everyone, for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Belgian Football Podcast, and we'll see you very soon for another one.